Welcome back, team, on the journey to transform culture. I'm Steve, and I'll be your guide. Well, team, today let's dive into the topic of dismissiveness. Yes, dismissiveness. Now, we all remember growing up as kids, trying to get the attention of our parents or other adults in the room, and what did they do? Dismiss you, right? Dismiss you, kind of, sidestep you because they were in intense conversation with other adults. Whatever was going on, you had to wait. So there was always kind of a little bit of an inherent level of dismissiveness when you were a young person growing up. But we become more sensitive to this as we develop because later on, we're more peers to other peers, obviously, and our voices and what we want to lend to the conversation become a little bit more important. At least we'd hope, right? But a lot of times the dismissiveness that we see is kind of insidious. It's kind of like a weed. It wraps itself around and intertwines in someone's behavior. And, it can also kind of follow along that when we're tired and fatigued and we get short with folks, our patience drops really low. And, we're more likely to be more dismissive. Even worse so, if you've ever been on a flight when somebody's trying to talk to you and you're exhausted and you just want to say take a nap or just zone out into a book or something of that nature, but yet somebody's trying to talk to you and trying to, just carry on. They're probably nervous about the flight and they just want to, kind of burn off a little extra steam. And you kind of go, yeah, and you're not really being overtly dismissive, but you kind of are. You're kind of saying, I just kind of want to read this book, right? So some people don't always take visual cues. So dismissiveness might be a reaction to others who aren't kind of catching the clue, aren't reading the room well. So there are some potentially legitimate reasons why you might kind of pull back a little. But we have to be careful because, like I said, that dismissiveness intertwines a lot like a weed. And it might be in an environment at work. And then, of course, if you add electronic devices to our lives, oh my gosh, when I was growing up, we didn't have the electronic devices. We didn't have that ingrained in our everyday lives to the extent that it does now for folks who are 40 or younger. So with that in mind, let's dive into dismissiveness. We often wonder why, we can't figure out why our turnover is so high. In some industries, turnover is as high as 40%. So let's go down through dismissiveness. Some of the, you could say the cues, traits, and just some of the aspects of dismissiveness. First of all, it's a lack of acknowledgement of others' opinions, feelings, or concerns, which seems pretty straightforward, right? When we're young, a lot of folks didn't really care about our feelings, concerns, or our opinions. And if we dive even further back when we're, very young, maybe even babies and that sort of thing, the only thing you had to express pure panic probably was to cry out loud, right? Just to kind of throw a fit or get, completely frustrated. And adults try to figure out what was going on. As you get older, I think we stopped crying and they stopped kind of checked out a little. But moving on to the next thing, it manifests as belittling, ignoring, minimizing someone's input or perspective. So now we start to go, a little more southward into darker territory, right? If our dismissiveness is such that we're making others feel belittled, ignored, or minimized, that's just not good. And that's not going to end up well. Next, it can lead to significant negative implications, creating a culture of disengagement and distrust. Well, that's, the snowball is starting to pick up steam now because now that dismissiveness is starting to divide. It's starting to pull at the seams of the culture that you have in place organizationally or just in culture in general. Now, keep in mind, this could be in your household. This could be in relationships. This could be in any environment, on any team. So, it starts to pull at the seams of that organization or that team, and disengagement begins to fester. People start to go into their silos, and then they stop trusting one another. When teams feel that their contributions aren't valued, they become demotivated. And of course, we know when the demotivated element starts to kick in, that really just means that people are not being as productive, right? They are not really inspired. They're not really self-motivated. Next, it leads to reduced productivity and innovation. So when we start to see our key performance indicators, we're not meeting objectives, we're not getting, our product or service to the customers on time, we're not creating that new product or able to successfully meet our timelines on new innovations to our product and service, this is that snowball picking up steam. And do we really see the weed that is kind of wrapping itself around our organization in the form of dismissiveness? Next, over time, it erodes communication, damages relationships, and then it begins to create high turnover. So as those relationships, the seams of that organization are stressed, the internal relationships start to become damaged, communication is eroding. It's just not good. Not only is that snowball picking up steam, it's probably less about a snowball and more just a flaming molten lava going downhill down a volcano. Not a good thing for your organization. Next, individuals seek environments where their voices will be heard and respected. So because of all this lending itself to the high turnover comes because individuals want to be in organizations where they are heard and respected, where their input is valued. And this is something that, essentially is the result of that turnover. In extreme cases, it fosters a toxic work culture where collaboration and growth are stifled. Well, now, with high turnover, the culture is damaged. You're constantly in a flow of, when we talked in the past about forming, storming, norming, and performing, this is where an organization never really gets out of storming. They're just stuck in the storming state. Next, it starts to undermine the success and morale of the organization. It's storming, forming and storming, and constancy. And an organization is suffering all the way around. It might even be to the point where the organization is having to make some tough calls. In some organizations, it might even be a call to close a facility, close a portion or part of an organization, a product or service. And are they really looking at the deeper cause of why these things are occurring? And you might think, well, is it something as simple as dismissiveness? Well, yes, dismissiveness and other behaviors, because if you think about it, it's a torrent of behaviors that are lending themselves, and that dismissiveness not only is a driver of it, but also a result of it. So let's talk now about how we might overcome dismissiveness. And if you think about it, the solution is really in the problem, and it often is the case. So if we're looking at ways that we might, things we might do or approaches, first, acknowledge the opinions and feelings and concerns of others in your organization, right? If you think about it, if you did that for your family, for your kids, for your significant other, anybody in culture in general, don't you think the results tend to be good, right? Next, guard yourself from belittling, ignoring, or minimizing others' inputs or perspectives. So it isn't good enough to say, well, I need to regard others. I need to have a heightened self-awareness, right? And guard what I say, because oftentimes what I say, and don't forget body language. Body language, the eye roll, right? I used to call it, when my oldest daughter was a teenager, I used to call it the four-car rollover, four-car rollover eye roll. She could eye roll me out of the building. And that is a minimization. That is part of that dismissiveness. Well, watch your body language. Have self-awareness. How your tone to other people also. And this is difficult because we can't hear ourselves, right? Somebody Speaking slowly to others might be just trying to be succinct and specific, and others might regard that as belittling, right? So we have to be careful, and it's also incumbent on others to communicate back if they feel like somebody is doing that, so that they can go, oh, well, I'm sorry, I didn't even realize that I was saying it that way. Give people a chance. Give people an out and an opportunity to grow through, not to let things fester and become worse. You'll find that when you do these things, you'll help to build a culture of engagement and trust. And when that engagement begins to pick up and the trust begins to build, you'll see that that organization, the seams, instead of being pulled apart, begin to strengthen. It'll also begin to help inspire and motivate your team, which is what you want. Why is that? Because that's what's driving your performance to serve your customers. And when you serve your customers, everybody wins. Next, your productivity and innovation will also begin to grow. Naturally, now we're beginning like an aircraft to take off, right? We're gaining altitude. First, we started with, inspiring. It will inspire and motivate our team. Now our productivity and our innovation will begin to pick up. Next, communication and our relationships begin to heal and grow. And you'll find, too, that with that communication and relationships healing and growing, people begin to trust in the team more, because they're heard and they're respected. Then you start to see where organizational culture becomes an environment of collaboration and growth. So now, before when I kind of touched on, because we talked before about forming, storming, norming, and performing, now you start to see an organization that was floundering because of dismissiveness before, in the storming and the forming and the storming stage, you start to see them break out of storming and maintain norming and break into performing. And when you start to see that, then you know things are building for the positive. The success and morale of the organization becomes obvious, and people want to be a part of it. Not only is your turnover dropping at this point, but now you've got individuals who want to be a part of that organization. They've heard good things in the community or even further out, and they're looking for opportunities to get on board with an organization that has a great culture. And a big part of that comes from us being aware of and not being dismissive and overcoming that. And where does it start? We have to overcome ourselves, because when we overcome ourselves, that spirals outward. And when it spirals outward, it helps others to grow and thrive. So I just wanted to touch base with you today a little bit on dismissiveness. Remember, hit that good domino 3 to 5 times a day to uplift, motivate, inspire. And when you do that for folks, not only you're transforming culture, but you're transforming yourself. And that's an amazing thing. All right, folks, hit like, share, and subscribe. We'll touch base with you next time. Until then, have a great day.